Hello fellow comrades, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk about the Legacy of Rome DLC expansion for Crusader Kings 2. In this expansion we have the main focus of the Roman Empire. Main features, retinues that are going to be private standing armies, ability to restore the Roman Empire, mend the Great Schism via decisions as well, which is going to have to be things about the Orthodox and the Roman Latin Church. Orthodox conciliar models are going to be changed. New events and decisions with the Byzantine Empire that are awesome as well. Factions were introduced here in this expansion, and a lot more that we're going to talk about today. Interesting characters to play, we have Basileus Alexius from 1081 in the bookmark the Alexiate. Then we have Basil I in the Viking Age 867 bookmark. We have Basileus Theodorus, the Latin Empire bookmark in 1204. And finally we got the Basileus Joannes of the Third Crusade in 1187. Without further ado, let's get into it and let me explain here what you get in the Legacy of Rome expansion. The first step for us is going to be the factions. If you are the Liege, you are going to know always who is in a faction. If you are an emperor or a king, you have different options to deal with the members or leaders of the factions. You have the right to imprison these guys, but you have to take into account that this action could fail and as well is going to provoke a revolt. The other thing that you can do is to send money incentives to members. You can send money. You can as well, you can try to plot to kill the actual member, and if you succeed, you're going to get rid of him, or you can do alliances to stop him from being a member of that faction. You can access the factions by clicking this button here, in which you see the fist, or F8. So to form a faction, you go here in Start Faction. If you want to form a faction, you can form up to 2 factions. It is going to say here only allowed to lead 2 factions. But if you want to be a member of a faction, you can go for multiple ones. When you start a faction and you have members, either you have members or not, you can go to decisions and you find the ultimatums. In this case, we have the ultimatum of demand application. If we want to overthrow Basileus, we're going to demand that the next in line is going to take control over the country. The other faction that you can form is increased council power. In the case that you are a powerful duke or you are a council member, and for example here we go to council laws, we see that the Basileus himself has all the power, and if we think that we need to empower ourselves, we can go and start the increased council power faction, and then in the intrigue we can send the ultimatum of demand increased council power. These 2 factions are very special and interesting. These are the independence faction and the claimant installment faction. Now, to be able to do a claimant faction, if you have to have a claim actually on either a strong claim or a weak claim is going to work as well, but you have to have a claim on something that your lieges has. In this case, we are the claimant of the empire, and every member that is going to be added here is going to support us in overthrowing the actual Basileus. You have the ultimatum of demand installation of claimant. When you click here, a letter is going to be sent to the emperor. Independence faction is very interesting. You are not going to independ yourself as a single entity, but all the members as well. This leads me to an interesting thing that you can use in your favor when you are either the liege or a duke. as the Duke Strategos Ioannes II of Armeniakon. You can use your Mysticus, which is the name of the spy master for the Byzantines, and you can use the Build Spy Network button here. If you see down there, it says Noble encouraged to join your faction 11.06% yearly. So if you send this guy into a specific county or duchy, you are going to be able to try to make that guy support you in your own faction. And it says as well, vassal discouraged from joining factions if you are the guy that is being targeted by a faction. Now let's talk about retinues. Retinues are standing armies. You access them by going to this tab over military, and you're going to see this window here. So this whole concept is going to be borrowed from a game called Sengoku. Troops are going to come in different combinations of 250 or up to 550 in this case. So we have different stuff here. We have heavy infantry, pikemen, heavy cavalry, and we have different combinations here. The way you can recruit them is based on the military organization technology that you have here, down here, and the amount of troops that you can recruit depending on your holdings. So don't expect to have the ability to recruit retinues when you begin or you just start the game. Further in your gameplay, you're going to be able to recruit retinues. When you recruit a retinue, the retinue is important to note. Let me show you here. I'm going to recruit this pikeman. This is a defense retinue. You see that the retinue comes with one guy. So because of this, we have these three buttons here in which you see retinues are set to not reinforce. You can change these by going for retinues are set to reinforce at half speed or reinforce at maximum speed, and this is going to cost you money. The more speed you want them to reinforce, the more is going to cost you. So it's going to be reflected in your wealth over here. You have to be careful with this because if this is set to not reinforce, this guy is going to stay in one guy all the time. We have shock retinue, defense retinue, cavalry retinue, skirmish retinue, light skirmish, Praetorian retinue. And here you see, depending on the culture, you're going to have a specialized retinue for each culture. In the case of the Romans, you have the Praetorian retinue, and then you're going to have cataphracts. When you are the Byzantines or when you are a different culture, you're going to have different options here. In terms of what the retinues are going to do in terms of the warfare mechanics is very interesting, because with retinues you can balance your flanks with cavalry and have in the center more heavy or light troops. You can divide pikes in the two flanks and the center, so you have more flexibility at the time of creating your own armies. For all of us all history buffs, will already know that in game the faction here is called the Byzantine Empire, but they were actually known in the medieval ages as the Roman Empire, and that is actually the way they felt. They were the actual successors of the whole empire. So because of that, in the Legacy of Rome, we have different decisions here that are going to be very interesting for players of the Byzantine Empire. We can go and mend the Great Schism, which, as it says, saw the Christian church divided into two branches, the Orthodox faith and the Catholic Roman of the Latins. But if all five of the episcopal sees of the Pentarchy could be restored under Roman rule and the Orthodox faith, there may be a chance to finally reunite the both churches, meaning that we need to have these four, including the Constantinople Church, under our control to be able to mend the Great Schism. Another decision that we can have is to restore the Roman Empire. We need to fill all of these conditions, 3,000 prestige, and to have all of the territories that are listed here if you finally manage to restore Rome, if you haven't Rome as capital, you'll have the option to make Rome your own capital. Another interesting thing about this is that when you restore Rome, you're going to get the trait Augustus, giving you monthly prestige of 0.50 and a vassal opinion of +10. In terms of the Orthodox religion and its mechanics, we can see that the religious head is the ecumenical patriarch. We have the possibility of multiple patriarchs called the five pentarchs, autocephalous patriarchs under kings, and the ecumenical patriarch can excommunicate Orthodox characters, grant divorces, and invasion casus belli. There is always a ecumenical patriarch landed or not. Following those rules, we have the ecumenical patriarch that is depicted with a gold ring. We can see that he is landed in the bishopric of Constantinople. We can see here the pentarchs, which were the original five patriarchs of the Christian Church. Their authority as autocephalous patriarchs over their respective ancient sees is still recognized with the Orthodox Church. We have these five pentarchs that are going to act autocephalous in an autocephalous way, meaning that they're going to be completely autonomous from the actual ecumenical patriarch. Anyone that is inside Antioch, Jerusalem, Alexandria, or Rome, the ecumenical patriarch is not going to be their religious head. Instead, they are going to have this. And we have an example here with the Strategos Isachius, the Duke of Antioch, which is saying here that the religious head of this guy is Patriarch Orestes of Antioch, instead of the normal standard religious head of the Basileus, which is Ecumenical Patriarch Ens, as you can see in this example. Following this as well, we have autocephalous patriarchs, meaning that all Orthodox kingdoms or empires also have their own autonomous patriarchs. This religion is going to separate the powers of the patriarchs in between kingdoms and empires. In this case, for example, we have Patriarch Voislav of the Kievan Rus, and we can see as well here the Patriarch Teimuraz of Georgia. Every single Orthodox Christian, if they possess a kingdom or an empire, they are going to make their court chaplain their own religious head. And we have as well the Miaphysite, which is the Christianity encompassing the Coptic Church and the Armenian Apostolic Church. In the religious map, we can see that Armenia is the area of the Miaphysites, and down here in southern Egypt, we got Miaphysites as well. In the island of Socotra, we got the Nestorians, as you can see here. We got the Monothelite, a heresy of the Orthodox, Paulicians. We got the Monophysite, which is a heresy of the Miaphysites. We got the Bogomilists, Iconoclasts, and the Messalian, which is the Nestorian heresy. In terms of conciliars with legacy of Rome, we can see different models, and in the case of the Byzantine Empire, they are going to have a completely different name. We begin here with the guy with the blue robes and the cane, which is the chancellor, called the Magistrus. Then we got over there the marshal, which is called here the Protestrator, with a cape and the red robes, shoulder plates. We got down here the steward with the green robes, that is called here a Scalarius with a parchment and plume. Very, very neat. And then we got in the other side the spy master with the purple robes and beards. As you can see, beards are very important here in the Byzantine Empire. And then we got down here the court chaplain, which becomes the patriarch, and which is actually a presbyter with the black robes. Very, very neat. So this is it for this Legacy of Rome expansion. I hope this was useful for those that are seeing this video for the first time, don't forget to check the other video that I have about the first expansion called the Sword of Islam. You can check that out. And if you like what you're seeing, give a like, support by subscribing. I am Victus. See you in the next one.